Dear audience, welcome to the show POWERchat. In today's episode, we are going to discuss about the relationship in between France and Nepal. Joining me today is His Excellency Yves CARMONA, French Ambassador to Nepal. Please allow me to welcome him. Welcome to the show, Your Excellency.
Thank you very much for inviting me. It's a great pleasure to have the opportunity to talk to your audience.
How have you been?
Well, I've been in Nepal for 8 months now, so it's still quite new, and I was lucky to arrive at the end of a difficult period, with the end of blockade, etc. And I've seen progress in many regards in the country, and it's very exciting to be here, because there are so many opportunities to meet the people. And the only thing is that I didn't go out enough out of Kathmandu yet, but I'm trying as much possible to visit the rest of the country.
What is your impression in these 8 months, especially that of the diversity of Nepal?
Diversity is really impressive. I've been posted in many countries already before, and I think the diversity of Nepal is probably wider than most of the other countries I've been. Ethnic, cultural, linguistic diversity, that's obvious, but also diversity of opinion, and a very exciting political spectrum, which is something I was not familiar with, and which is it's very buoyant, and I think it's something which is propelling Nepal into the global world, into the 21st century, with a very interesting position, because not so many countries, especially in Asia, show such diversity of opinions.
Well, Your Excellency, how do you observe the state of relations in between Nepal and France?
Relations between our countries are excellent, and they have always been excellent. We established diplomatic relations in 1949, and very soon after, a very famous French mountaineer, Mr. Maurice Herzog, came to Nepal and went on top to Annapurna, which was the first 8,000 summit to be conquered. And even now, this memory of this strong interest of French people for Nepal, not only for the mountains but also for peoples here, is still very deeply rooted in Nepalese psyche, and they always remind me that episode and what happened after. We have no visible problems in our bilateral relationships. We enjoy here not having been in a position of colonial power, so it makes relationships very simple, exempt of prejudice. And I just wish we would be more intense, but still we are very good.
The relation has long been cherished in between two countries, but there is less, media or other public relations sort of campaign. What can be done to intensify the long cherished relation in between two countries?
A lot can be done, and there are different areas. There is a political area, there is a cultural area, there is an economic area, and definitely they could be more intense in all these areas. If we talk about political, well, quite a few political visits to France. Last week, Minister of Defense, Honorable Mr. Khan, went to Paris and attended a meeting, international meeting about peacekeeping operations. So it was an opportunity for the high-level contacts. We had other opportunities before. And on the other way, I would like more French politicians to come to Nepal. We had recently members of the parliament, and also last month former foreign minister who is candidate for the post of Secretary General of WHO. He came to pay visit here, was received by Honorable President Bandali and also Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Hara. So, it could be more, but still it's significant. In the cultural area, French presence is also quite significant here. We participate in the big festival like Photo Kathmandu and Jazz Mandu and other events. Our Alliance Française de Kathmandu is very lively with French classes, also with a lot of performances. I wish there was more cultural presence of Nepal in France and could be intensified. There is a project of a big heritage exhibition which might, if everything works well, start in 2018 and go to France and to Singapore and to Vienna in Austria, which would exhibit the major masterpieces from museums here, museum in Paris, museum in Vienna. So that would be a good opportunity to promote also Nepalese culture. In the area of economy, there are successes and there are some impatiences, I would say. Success is aircraft. We have been able to sell Airbus A320 to Nepal Airlines, and we plan to sell more, 330, which will very much improve the capacity of Nepal to attract more visitors. This is on the way, and we have a big market share in helicopters. It's also Airbus. Other projects which are very exciting, I would mention just two. One is a cable car. We have provided government with a feasibility study about the line of a cable car in Kathmandu, not mainly for tourism, but really for daily commuting here, which would help, as you can imagine, because the traffic is a bit slow, so it would go over the traffic jams. And so I hope this project materialize in the coming years. Of course, there are financial conditions, but technically it's proven efficient. Other projects are more long-term, like hydroelectricity. As everybody knows, hydroelectricity projects are very long-term, and there are French companies which have already proved their capacities in other countries, and they are eager to contribute to the development of hydropower. So these are the main areas where I think our relationships could be more intense.
Well,
I would like so.
Well, what are the French government's development priorities as such in the countries like Nepal?
Well, our support to development goes through two channels. One channel is the EU. As one of the major contributors to the EU budget, we are involved in the EU programs in this country. As you know, 360 million euros for 7 years. So we are associated with this action. The other channel is NGO. There are many NGO which are supplemented by private money, but with a very strong contribution of the government for fiscal reasons. So we are proud to have here many French-based or French origin NGOs. So these are the two tools, I would say. We don't have direct programs with money from French government. This has been interrupted many years ago. So we rely mainly on these two channels.
You mean the NGOs, those from the French origin, work here,
yeah,
and you collaborate with them?
Exactly.
Well,
especially in the health sector, education sector, and also in reconstruction, of course.
what about collaborating with the civil society organizations working here in Nepal, that of the non-governmental organizations as well?
Obviously, no action is running in this country without strong support from civil society organizations which are Nepalese-based. So the principle is that French-based NGO, they work by cooperating. Of course, we are looking at that with Nepalese NGO, like, for example, I will not name, but when one French NGO is supporting the reconstruction of a school, and which I saw in different places here, it's always in collaboration with a civil society organization on the ground, and the day-to-day work is done and supervised by Nepalese people. The French are just providing technical assistance and funding. That's the principle.
So you mentioned that French government's development supports comes through the channel of European Union, and recently the United Kingdom decision to remain out from the EU has some debate, some dialogues, and some concerns coming from the development campaigners and activists. What are the possible negative impact of this decision? Do you see some negative immediate impact of the United Kingdom's decision to stay out from the European Union?
Well, the first negative impact obviously is on UK itself, because the British pound has fallen by 15%. So the current GDP of UK now has regressed to 6th place, leaving the 5th place to France. So, but that's their problem. As for European Union contribution, the program of ODA towards Nepal has been decided, and it's 360 million euro from 2014 to 2020. And that's decided and cannot be in any way affected by a retract of UK, if retract there is, because they are not out of EU at the moment. The UK voters have voted for Brexit, but it still has to be confirmed. So let's see what happens.
And recently, French government has shut down with the visa section in the French embassy in Kathmandu. What are the impacts of this decision? Do you see any impacts, especially in the areas of development cooperation in between two countries?
I don't see any impact on development relations, because the problem, unfortunately, is for Nepalese who want to go to France. So let me just set the point. We are still delivering visa, fortunately, but through our consular section in New Delhi. And there is a private company here which is very qualified to do that. And if any Nepali wants to go to France and through France to Schengen, because the visa for France is valid for all Schengen space, he or she just has to go to that company and provide the files and passport, and it's processed to Delhi. And you don't have to go to Delhi, it's processed in Delhi and then get a visa and comes back to Nepal. But it takes more time. It means that it's more difficult to improvise a trip to France, because we think that about 2 weeks are necessary between the time when you give files and the time you get the visa back. But generally it works. It's not, of course, a pleasant situation. It's a decision which has been taken by governments, not only in Kathmandu but in many embassies. We have a principle which is to keep a universal network of embassies, which is, I think, the third biggest in the world. And of course it costs money. So due to our fiscal situation, we had to decide either to close down some embassies, and we don't do, like some other countries are doing, but we are here to stay. It's absolutely confirmed. We are even going to build a new embassy and a new residence, so we are here to stay.
How do you ensure to the Nepalese people that the embassy in Nepal is not going to be closed? When after there are some suspects.
Yeah, of course I heard so, but after maybe 1 year or a little more, you will see out of the ground coming up the walls of a new embassy, a brand new one. We will erase the current one, which is a bit old, and we build a new one. The budget has been decided, the political decision has been taken, and I'm very hopeful that the program will start soon.
Well, Your Excellency, how do you measure the impact of French government's development support in Nepal?
So it's difficult for me personally to measure this impact because I have to rely on what our partners do with our means, meaning the EU and the NGO. I would say overall it's an impression after a few months here that the impact is significant. I've seen with my eyes schools freshly rebuilt or even in the process of being rebuilt here and there, and because of the action of NGO, it's well spent money. It's not big money, but it's well spent. It requires a lot of pressure sometimes to have paperwork done and to have enough people to do the work on the ground, but it works. 2 weeks ago I was somewhere to inaugurate one of these new schools, which has been funded by French NGO, and that was very impressive to see all the kids obviously very happy. There are some areas where it's more difficult to assess how is health sector going, how is the quality of education going, but it's an issue we have to of course to discuss with Nepalese authorities, and I think things are going better.
What is your impression over the functioning of the authorities here in Nepal? Because the money does not directly go to the beneficiaries. It has channels, and money going through the channels, it takes time, and sometimes there is always criticism that the money is not being spent on time. So how do you assess this, that your support directly through embassy or through the EU is spent well?
Well, when it goes through the EU, I trust our EU colleagues to do their best for money to be spent well, and so I don't have a specific assessment about that, but I know how much the EU is cautious about the way funding goes. As for the NGOs, for those I know, I can see that they are making sure, that's not only official NGOs, but sometimes just simple associations. The way they are making sure that the money goes to the beneficiaries is very impressive. They consult with the government officials on the ground. They make sure that, for example, rebuilding a school is rebuilt in conformity with the principles of Build Back Better. But the money we spend is really spent with actual work, with material, with the salary of the people who work, and you can see the buildings coming up. So for me it's very exciting to see that.
Well, how does your government, the French government, support to the development process, especially during the disaster and political turmoils? There are often questions to the donors or the diplomatic community from the civil society and sometimes by media on some interest. So what are the areas that the French government support, and what is the process your government support to during the time of the turmoils or disasters? We noticed a big disaster last year here in Nepal.
Yeah, last year has been a terrible time in this country. I personally arrived after, but of course I followed very closely, and I'm very sorry for casualties, almost 9,000 people,
yeah, around 9,000,
including 10 French people, by the way. And what my government did at that time was to send very quickly rescue teams and aircraft also to evacuate people, and also some water purification units in emergency, and for more long-term use, food package through the World Food Program, and also help for reconstruction of schools. So overall it's been about $1.5 million, which is not as big as some other countries, but it was still significant. And I would say more than that, there's been a very impressive mobilization in France. I was in France at the time, and I've seen so many people, associations, all kind, especially people who had already come to Nepal because they were mountaineers or just visitors, mobilized to gather funding and to help one village, one school, one health center. So this has been overall. The French government supports these civil society actions, and we don't have prejudice about what kind of action should be implemented. It's up to the people. It's a people-to-people action which we support. In the future, I think one of our actions can be on the long term very useful. We have permanently one French expert working in your seismology office here, and working very closely with our laboratory, which is in Paris. So we contribute to a system of monitoring seismic responses. So that's one of things we do.
At the beginning, you mentioned that French government has been supporting in the areas of civil aviation, hydropower, education, and economic issues. In your experience, where does Nepal need to invest a lot so that the participatory development process is ensured?
That's a very good question, and it's more a question for the Nepalese government. But I think the main point is stability. I think you have in this country all what is needed to have a very, very brilliant development. But what is lacking and what has been lacking for a long time is political stability. Because in many areas, if you want to have development, you need to have long-term view and a long-term implementation. I've seen it in other countries which were less endowed than Nepal, but which achieve a very steady and long-term development because we have stability. I don't mean specifically political stability, because that's something you cannot control. But I think it would be very helpful if the responsible, the high-level civil servants, the managers, were more stable. Because when we change so often, we begin to understand one issue, then we are moved to another sector, and so for them it's not easy to adjust. And for the investors, it's also quite unsettling, because you talk to someone one day and 6 months later you have to talk to someone else. I think it's an impediment to development. So to turn your question around, I think everything is here. You have very skilled people, very resilient. The resilience of Nepalese people is worldwide famous. You all do very good studies, a lot of skill. People who go to work abroad get also new skills. They would love to come back to the country, but they have to find a proper place to work in. The natural resources are there, including hydropower, and tourism also is a very big asset. So all that is here. Now the issue is to pack that together and to have a long-term plan to say, this is what we will do, this is where we will allocate the resources, and this is where the foreigners may have a say, may have contribution with foreign investments. So this was implemented, I'm sure your development would be very brilliant.
Well, Your Excellency, we are coming to the end of the show. Do you have anything to say that I have left to ask you, to our audience?
I think my main message is that we have talked enough. Now it's time for action.
Well, Your Excellency, it was a pleasure talking to you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. I was very pleased to talk to you.
Dear audience, time now to wrap up the show. Keep watching us. See you next week. Namaste.